Our next presenter may have traveled through SFO connection. He comes from Zero Waste Scotland, so he serves currently as a CEO there, works to deliver the Scottish Government's circular economy strategy and other low-carbon policy initiatives. And he has previously worked at initiating recycling systems in the public and third sectors and leading the community recycling network in Scotland. He was named the most influential person in the UK waste and resource efficiency sector by Resource Magazine in 2014. And he was granted a fellowship of the Chartered Institution of Waste Management in 2016. So he's here to update us on the latest trends and policies from Zero Waste Scotland. Welcome, Iain Gulland.
Wow. Thank you very much. Absolutely fantastic to be here. Thank you to NCRA and Hilary and the team for the opportunity to come and present to you today, and thanks also for the rain this morning. It's made me feel quite at home. I realise I've only got about 10 minutes. I'm not going to dwell too much on where Scotland is, and the fact it's a fantastic country, not just to live there, but to visit as well. I'm sure you all know that, yes? You know that? So, and you know exactly where it is on the map. So I'm going to really just talk about the journey that we're on in terms of the transition to a circular economy. And it's not a unique journey, because I know that that's a journey that you're all on, and I've been hearing snippets of it this morning in terms of action on the ground to kind of make that transition. So sometimes we're seen in Scotland that we're ahead of other parts of the world in the circular economy, but in many areas we're not. And so part of my journey over here is not just to present to you about what we're doing, but to learn from you what you're up to and try and see if there's things that I can take back to Scotland. And I think that's very important for me, because actually in my own personal journey, I actually attended one of my first zero waste conferences here in the Bay Area in Berkeley about 14 years ago. And huge inspiration for myself in terms of not just what was happening here, but the vision that people had, and a global vision as well around zero waste. And I took some of that inspiration back to Scotland. We then set up a zero waste think tank with the Scottish Government, and a lot of the work that I'm going to talk about has kind of come out of that collaborative nature around thinking about resources completely differently than what we had before. So as much of our journey might inspire you, hopefully. Believe me, there is a lot of sunshine from California embedded in it as well, so thank you for that. So who's Zero Waste Scotland? We are the government. We are fully funded by the Scottish Government. We are seen as their kind of experts in all things recycling and circular economy, run a number of programmes across a number of disciplines: resource efficiency, anti-litter, recycling, providing support to municipalities, consumers and the businesses. We have an annual budget of about equivalent of 35 million US dollars. We have a staff of about 110. We invest in a number of projects similar to what you've heard about today in terms of working with community groups and businesses. We're about trying to support the implementation of all of the things that are being talked about today in Scotland. At the back of that, we're very much focused on providing not just environmental systems approach, but thinking about this as an economic driver, a social driver, anti-poverty, all aligned to what's happening at a global level in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is really at the heart of our work. This isn't just an environmental challenge that we have in Scotland. This is about how we do something different around society in Scotland, but has a global reach, particularly when we start thinking about consumption patterns that we have in Scotland that has an impact around the world. Our journey started really looking at the idea of a resource grid. We have an energy grid, we have a water grid, where everything is kind of systemized to provide adequate power and as a utility. So we really wanted to change the way we looked at waste. The pillars of this was this idea of simplifying the system, making a consistent approach to all the resources. So it was about looking at a regulatory requirement. So all businesses now and all households have to recycle in Scotland. There is a mandatory law around key materials that have to be recycled, including food waste. And behind that, there is a recycling charter where all municipalities are beginning to align themselves around a consistent approach to that. So this is about how we travel those materials through our system for maximum economic, environmental and social opportunities at home. But underpinning that is climate change, obviously. issues around plastics. I mean, the fact that we have the issue today writ large in all our media around plastics shows you that the linear system is fundamentally broken and has been broken for some time. So the shift to a circular economy is really at the heart of that. The requirement, not just in Scotland, but around the world. Obviously, our soils are as degraded, perhaps not as degraded as other parts of the world, but we are losing a lot of carbon from our soils. Trade. We have obviously some geopolitical issues as well in the Scottish environment around trading our materials into the global supply network. But ultimately, we basically export over 75% of our materials in Scotland. We collect them. That's good for the environment, but it's not really good for our economy. Analysis that we've done is for every one job there is in the collection of materials for recycling, there's a further 8 jobs in the remanufacturing, reprocessing, repurposing of those materials back into your economy. We're exporting jobs. And also, we're wasting a lot of food, like everyone. So the Scottish Government launched its Circular Economy Strategy in 2016, which basically changed the way that we're going to look at resources and really try and attack the opportunity, or really realise those opportunities that, yes, this is about increasing recycling, increasing reuse, but it's also about what can we do with them in a more circular system and maximise those opportunities around reuse. You don't have me to tell you the impact of reuse. We've had a lot of stories already this morning. This isn't just about recycling. This is about how do we maximise the value, make things last longer. How do we maximise the social and economic opportunities for us all? So we've broken it down into some key sectors, as you would imagine. We did focus on whisky. Why wouldn't you? Big industry. But even just looking at whisky, beer and fish in terms of food and drink, we recognise changing to a more circular system would create economic opportunities of over the equivalent of $1.2 billion US. Huge system change, but ultimately the economic opportunities are there. Manufacturing, shifting to a more remanufacturing base would increase job numbers by about 6,000 in Scotland. Oil and gas industry, a lot of oil and gas industry decommissioning is happening in the North Sea, off Aberdeen. Most of that will be recycled, but going back to my last slide, if we could reuse or repurpose some of that equipment, not just in Scotland, but in other oil fields or other installations around the world, there's a 15-fold increase in value. So that might not be topical because it's oil and gas, but that's a real economic boom, not just to our supply chain, but supply chains around the world. It's also about working with communities. We do a lot of work with community groups on the ground in terms of their aspirations around reuse and repair. That's been going on for some time, but really the circular economy is really driving much more engagement at a local level, and we're keen to support not just the top-down actions from government and the business actions, but the bottom-up actions from community groups all over Scotland. We're focusing on a cities approach, as well as looking at key sectors. We realise that a real energy and real collaboration can happen at a local level. So we did a project with Glasgow 2 years ago where we mapped out all of the resources in a city. So all of the resources, all of the waste, but all of the resources, where they were flowing, where they were appearing, where they were leaking out of the system. And that really galvanised a lot of businesses and other partners, universities, students, etc., to come together and actually start to analyse opportunities and business opportunities as well as social opportunities to realise the value. That really started to change the way that the people in the cities, in particular municipalities, in terms of their waste system, started to address some of the issues around leakage of the system, i.e. materials just being the linear economy. And we're now rolling that out in a number of other cities across Scotland. So this is basically a list of the kind of things we're doing in terms of our circular economy strategy. This is quite a comprehensive programme delivered by myself and the team, well, my team, not me, obviously I don't do anything, my team, but also in collaboration with a number of other partners. Really at the heart of what we're doing in Scotland is collaboration. It's not just the Zero Waste Scotland programme. We work in real partnership, collaboration with our enterprise colleagues, our skills colleagues, our education colleagues across the government landscape, both at national level and at local level. This is a collaborative opportunity, and everybody is seeing it as such. So it's not just one agency approach. And that's really, I think, one of the secrets for us in terms of what we're managing to achieve in Scotland is how we've all come together. Well, you'll notice the 2 points at the bottom, product stewardship, containerisation, deposits, which I know is something that we're keen to learn from other parts of the world, because that's something we haven't quite got our heads around. How can we actually change the system in a different way, not just finance it differently, but actually change the way that we look at those things in terms of value, both at a citizen level, but also as a business level. But final point really is this is system thinking. I know that term is used a lot, but that's what we're beginning to learn. This is, if we start to think about system thinking or system two thinking, this is about how we start to address something differently, not immediately going to the obvious answer and moving the recycling story on a journey. This is about being much more deliberate, much more reflective, much more analytical about what the outcomes we're all trying to do and bringing people together. And that's quite an uncomfortable conversation or a way that people think. As you know, if you've ever studied sort of system one and system two thinking, most people like the reactive, the quick thinking, the problem solving, and get moving on. The system thinking is slightly uncomfortable, but that's really what the circular economy is about. It's thinking about the whole system in a completely different way from the one that we've got now, which, as I said, isn't really fit for purpose going forward. And it's also a people thing. That's really at the heart of what we're doing in Scotland, recognising whether it's small business leaders or the community groups or people in government. This is about people. This is all about people. We sometimes anonymise it and talk about business, and we talk about sectors, and we use language, but this is about people at the heart of this and how people want to come together and socialise and be. They don't want to be competitive. People don't want to be competitive. People naturally want to be collaborative and social. We're social animals, and people want to have this. And that's what the circular economy, for me, is really gaining traction, because this is exciting. People are really happy to get involved in the circular economy because it allows them to socialise and move things forward together. If that's whetted your appetite, I hope it has, please come and visit Scotland in October. We are hosting the third global hotspot, so following in the footsteps of the Netherlands 2 years ago and Luxembourg last year, we won the opportunity to create the hotspot in and around Glasgow going forward at the end of the year. So please come and visit. Come and share with us your journey as well. We'll hopefully be able to show you what we're doing, but there'll be a lot of opportunities to interact. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, stay for questions. Great. Can I see hands for questions for Iain? We have time for two. All the way there. Oh, here, David. Don't worry.
So, thank you so much. Ellen MacArthur Foundation states that their circular economy initiative has three overriding principles. One is to reduce environmental impacts, one is to advance circularity, and the third is to restore natural capital. If you look at the programming of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation in the US, 98% of their work is around the second objective, circularity through recycling and composting. What's your experience in Europe? Is it different? Is, in your experience, are circular economy interpreted differently on different sides of the Atlantic?
That's interesting. I think for us, it is a systems thinking, so it is more about waste prevention, certainly from our point of view, and I think other European countries understand that. It's quite one of the interesting things about Ellen MacArthur Foundation, or working with those people over a number of years, where, and it's not about them. I think everybody just thought this was big business was going to do this. Big business was going to kind of sort things out, and then there was an issue that business generally would have to do something, and then there was municipalities are going to do something. But actually, it's more. I think everybody recognises that this is about how communities sort this out. So it's about a much more of a collaborative nature around the things that are really challenging them, and that is about waste. It's about the production of waste and the overconsumption of waste. So I think we're beginning to see, a change in that dynamic around how people view the circular economy. And certainly we're seeing it, we're now experiencing it at home, where businesses are much more engaged in this around waste prevention and reuse and repair and the kind of different business models around leasing and lending, rather than seeing it as a recycling exercise, which is still something that happens at their back door. This is a boardroom level conversation, and it's not about recycling.